Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we have back with us Erin Wilkins. And Erin's got such a large resume that I'm not even going to jump into it, but we have talked about everything from soul fragment healing to honeybees with Erin over the last few years. And we were just talking a little bit about kind of a strange time energetically. And I know that some people really connect and feel those things. Like people talk about, Mercury being retrograde and certain energetic times of the year having to do with, planets and the sun and the moon and things like that. Certainly, there's an energetic effect on the tides. So we have some big tides hitting the West Coast right now. There's a big hurricane boiling up. So there's a lot of energetic things happening out here where we're at. There's also heat waves and droughts and a lot of sort of big nature things happening. And then some people don't seem to notice. I mean, I guess, there's also some people don't notice getting hit over the head with a rock, I suppose.
True.
What's your take on all that? Like, are these energetic shifts, do they affect everybody and everything, or do they affect certain people more than others, or how does all that work?
I think they affect everybody. I mean, we're all little beings running around on this planet, So I mean, we're definitely affected. It's whether you're aware. You can walk around kind of like a horse with your little blinders on the sides of your eyes, so
Right.
that you're not aware of everything and you can just live in like a two-dimensional world
Mhm.
rather than, there's so many more dimensions, there's so many things around us. And so tapping into that is huge. And I think a lot of times maybe people would say, hey, I can't really sleep, and they'll just attribute to, not being able to sleep, not, aware that there are energies right now that are really causing a lot of people trouble with that.
So I have never spent a whole lot of time. I mean, I kind of half jokingly, talk about my astrological sign and things like that. But, it's half jokingly. I know that there are in some way some kind of an influence. I've had my chart read and I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive how it seems to identify pieces of me that I don't talk about much.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I go, well, if I look at the tea leaves long enough, I can see what I want to see sometimes. And
Yeah.
so, when it comes to those sorts of things, I always put myself in the driver's seat and say I'm responsible for my choices, and whatever's pushing on me one way or the other, there's always things pushing on me, and it still comes down to that. But things like sleep and maybe being emotional or I'm trying to understand, I guess, the nature of this energy. Like we know that there's, photons that the sun sends down, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that are actual little particles of light that the sun puts out, and they come all the way down here and they hit everything, and they hit plants, and they give life, and they hit our skin, and they sometimes change its color, give you a little vitamin D. I mean, there's all these things that happen with an
Yeah.
exchange of energy. We know there's electricity that, happens when even raindrops fall out of the sky. We know that the earth has this iron magnetic core that's spinning around creating electricity. So we have this magnetic field that comes up out of the ground and protects us from a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of energy all around. There's the energy of gravity, I guess. I think there's energy involved there,
Mm-hmm.
sort of a force that holds you down. Um,
Yep.
there's attractive energy, repulsive energy. These are all things that we can like kind of in some way understand, I guess. I suppose if you wanted to even say quantify. So when it comes to energy, you're talking about the lion's gate. I don't even know what that is. I mean, and it's not because I don't care. I just, there's so many things to know. I, I'm, I know more about silt and sand right now because I'm refinishing the floor of my Temescal, and I'm digging up clay way out of the depth of my pond, and I'm sifting it and straining it and washing it and getting this beautiful sort of quicksand stuff that I'm coating the bottom of the floor with. Well, so right now my understanding of things is more earthbound.
Yeah.
I look up into the sky sometimes and I see just, so much. It's hard for me to wrap my head around what it all means and what's doing what, or even what am I looking at? You see these little lights,
Yeah.
and sometimes they move and sometimes they almost talk to you and sometimes they just sit there and don't do anything. So there's so much that I don't understand and know. Maybe share a little bit about your knowledge about these things and these energies and what they really are.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the more time that goes, the more I realize I don't know a lot.
Yeah, that
You
happens a
know,
lot. The older
yeah,
you
you just
get, the
keep
dumber you get.
absolutely. And I think there's a tendency to, put too much on one thing of like, I'm going to live my whole life by what the stars are doing or what my zodiac's saying. And
Right.
I think they're useful tools to maybe explain some of the things that we might be going through, but not necessarily to base your whole life on. And I was reading today just that the Lions Gate is opening. So there's a lot of people that are struggling with sleep, kind of this new dimension, a shift in the energies to kind of, it's almost like this new direction. Something new is happening. Something's
Okay.
opening,
So
which
what
is
is
always,
this Lion's Gate? Like that's the part that I
oh,
need to know
yeah.
what that is.
It's, and I'm probably not explaining it correctly. There's probably someone watching this going, she doesn't know what she's talking about, but it has something to do with the lining up of some of the stars
Oh, okay.
and the constellations. And it
Got
kind
it.
of, people believe it opens up some kind of a portal when those stars are aligned.
Well, I have seen portals and I've experienced them, and sometimes I've been real tempted to walk through them and I haven't because I don't necessarily want to know what's inside there. But
Yeah.
but I don't know what they are. I don't know what causes them. I don't know Jack, and I go, well, if I'm experiencing something like here, like you say, where these little specks, these little beings walking around this rock floating around in the universe, if,
Yeah.
if I can experience, in my little terrestrial world, something like that, imagine, out there in the universe, it probably happens in any way you can imagine. And
Yeah.
and probably a lot of ways you can't imagine. So these
Yeah.
portals, I can't help but think have to do with dimensions kind of intersecting with each other a little bit. Uh,
Hmm.
it seems that like a lot of unexplained things that we experience, in my opinion, whatever that means, there are so many different things in different dimensions that we don't have any clue
Mm-mm.
about how they operate or what that means. Or, we have this sort of three-dimensional, maybe four-dimensional world that we experience, and it's got, height, width, depth, and maybe some other layer that we can sort of perceive, and you think to yourself,
Yeah.
there could be thousands, millions of different dimensions that operate in any possible place. So, you think about like all these things that might be happening in this very space that we're in
Yeah.
on different levels. I've had a strange experience when I was going through my cancer healing, and right when I was like right on the edge of death, I had a little turnaround, and I think it had to do with my necessity and ability to focus everything I had on this one thing. And I went into a place that all I can describe it as was like a quantum world. Like
Mm.
I was in a place where like there was energies that I could see and what I would perceive to be as, molecules, atoms, some sort of very small particles that I was in the middle of and directing and helping and moving. And I was like, whoa, and there
Yeah.
was no medicine involved. There was no chemicals involved. It was just having to focus so much attention on this one thing. That told me that experience, and I went back to that place many times. Well,
Mm.
sort of in that space of turning it around and going from a fall downhill to a climb back out of that place. And, for several weeks, I was, in a very, very focused spot, and I could like close my eyes and just go right back to this place over and over again. Again, no chemicals involved of any kind. And I told me that there's so much more to our experience or to this world or to this universe that, we're walking through right now. And
Oh yeah.
we just don't maybe know how to get there, get back, what it is, or, and so sometimes when these celestial bodies, that you think about, well, what are they? There are these planets and stars that are so far away you can't even imagine, but from a perspective, you can see them lined up and they sort of make these shapes, and you go like, oh, well, somebody got the notion that this group of heavenly bodies, the way they're positioned in the universe from our point of view,
Mm-hmm.
represent this thing. And maybe it's just like some kind of, I don't know, a download. People talk about, connecting to universal source or God or the universe, whatever you want to call that energetically. People get messages or connections or insight in some way that says, oh, this thing I would never know about, here's how it is. And then all of a sudden
Yeah.
they know stuff. And I know people that have had no training and no studying about a particular topic, and they're all of a sudden start spouting it like they're professors. And I'm like, where did that come from? They're like, I don't know. One day I was just sitting with this thing and I just, boom, it just came into me. And I was like, oh, interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. It was like a matrix download, right? Just
That's what people call it, and so maybe when these stars are aligned, I mean, who knows what a star is? There's people who say stars are spirits, that there's sort of a celestial, they call them celestial bodies.
yeah.
Oftentimes people say, we're all made of stardust. They say, maybe at
Mm-hmm.
one point you go ahead and get to be a star. And maybe that's sort of a thing. I don't know. I mean, but somehow this energy creates these places in time and space where something's happening that is bigger than us and somehow affects us.
Yeah.
How do we collect that? Like, how do you think, like, how do we tap into it? Like, I know, like, when you're walking on the ground with your bare feet and you're in sand, or especially when there's water flowing underneath you, uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of feel that energy. Like, there's
Absolutely.
actual electrons coming up through your feet and going into your body. Like, it's a tangible thing.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up in the middle of the night or you can't sleep, there's like static energy going on. Do we have like receptors for that, or is it just something that's unexplained, or how does that, what's your understanding of how does that affect us? Like, I could be
Yeah.
near a plug in the wall that's full of electricity that if I stuck my fingers in it, I'd get killed.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm over here and it's not affecting me, or at least noticeably.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of that's all around us anyway, especially with electricity, because you've got the electromagnetic radiation that's constantly, pouring in from lights and computers and phones
Right.
and all of that. And yeah, it does affect us. It affects us greatly. And so having that sense of, again, going out and grounding with nature to reset and recharge on a more natural frequency rather than living under the electromagnetic radiation frequencies.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a whole nother conversation.
yeah, that is
Uh,
another
but
conversation.
it's important. I mean, this the lately. in the last 20 years, especially, they put up all these big towers and the cell phones, and there's actual the satellite stuff. There's actual energy being broadcast out
Yep.
beyond just radio waves, and it affects life in a
Yep.
not particularly positive way.
Yep.
I wondered, do you think in some way that is amplified or amplifies the natural energy shift that happens that's really very subtle? Like when the stars align, there's a thing that's happening, but not everybody feels it. But when you're around, especially people that are around some of these towers or sources of, you know, electromagnetic energy that's, man-made, do you think the two have a connection? Do you think that one kind of focuses the other one, or in some way scrambles it, or does something that causes it to affect us more? Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters, and for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
I mean, I think that the man-made electromagnetic radiation frequencies can be so powerful that it kind of dims your senses to be able to feel everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in a sense of that, of, you do need to protect yourself and do what you can to, eat healthy and keep your body as pure to be able to receive those frequencies and counteract it.
Right.
Because the natural frequencies are always going to be more powerful, but the man-made frequencies are always louder. And so
Okay.
that's what people hear. They hear the cacophony of the loudness, and
Yeah.
sometimes they forget to tap in. And so you can get lost. You can get lost in that, or lost in your symptoms of how it's making you feel. And you forget that, like, hey, you're feeling a certain way, but you have the power to do something with that. You have the power to change it. You have the power to be healthy. You have the power to, tap into your giftings and your talents so that you can be a positive force here instead of.
I fully agree with that. I think, people that live by their horoscopes, I don't know if you ever saw that Twilight Zone way back when with Shatner as a character, and he was at a restaurant and he kept hitting this little thing, and it was a fortune teller, and it would tell him, and one thing happened that lined up with it, and he became obsessed with this little fortune teller machine telling him what to do, and it turned into this obsession. I think a lot of people, or some people anyways, I have no idea how many, they look for guidance in ways that is maybe, I know if you have somebody that's connected really well and they're good at doing readings, they can see some pretty amazing things, or they can channel things, whatever, that you're like, wow, okay. But if you're looking at your newspaper horoscope, or something that was sort of generically done, nowadays it's probably mostly AI created.
Yep.
You got to think to yourself, all right, well, there's always sort of possibilities and likelihoods of something happening because of whatever, like you said, the moon position or the time of year. It's April. Well, it's more likely it's going to rain. So if I say it's going to rain today in April, I'll probably be right more than I'm not. Where if I say it in August, I'm probably going to be wrong all the time. there's things that you can sort of stack the odds. And I think people that kind of rely on that for their, I don't know, their guidance or their, I don't know, direction, their compass. I mean, in some ways, maybe it's not bad because it's like following Farmer's Almanac. Like they're just sort of noticing things that normally happen,
Yeah.
plant
Yeah.
tomatoes in March and they'll be ready by May. I mean, there's certain things that wisdom and logic and observation that you can go by, but things like Mercury being retrograde, that to me was always a stumbling block because it's not even doing anything really. It just looks like it. And it's
Yeah.
like Mercury spins around the sun the same as it always does. There's just a point at which it looks like it's going the other way. And then people get all hung up on, everything's all convoluted because of that.
Yeah.
I I I have a little difficult time swallowing things like that, where
Yeah.
yet people are pretty adamant, about that's why my week's been so terrible, or that's why I'm, having struggling with these things. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not even real. It's a thing that
Yeah.
it's just an observation, it just appears a certain way. And but yet, why does it appear that way? Is there some kind
Yeah.
of energetic thing that happens because of the way, you got to think that there's a force that holds all the planets in our solar system in a particular way all the time.
Yep.
And it doesn't really vary that much. And when it does, planets fly out and die,
Yep.
and it happens once in a great while. Fortunately, not in our lifetime, but I mean, it happens. And
Yeah.
most of the time, they all stay together and they do what they're supposed to do, and the moon spin around so so tightly that you can project where they're going to be at a particular time
Yep.
just by observing for a few years. And I think to myself, well, there's something going on. Like there's definitely forces of nature, energy going on, and whether you believe in a man with a beard holding everything together, or something we just can't comprehend. Uh,
Hmm.
I tend to lean with the something we can't comprehend, and we give it names, and that's cool because it's how we identify with things. But sleep is a big deal,
Yep.
essential to our health. It's one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most important components to health. And you were talking about how it was disrupting your sleep. And I think to myself, well, you're a pretty sensitive person.
Mm.
So you tend to experience maybe things that are subtle to some people in a more amplified way, maybe.
Yeah.
So, what is the actual experience like? Is it like jittery energy where you're just like can't settle down and you just can't seem to relax? Or is it something that is an annoyance, like a ringing in your ear that just won't shut up? Or is it like
Mm.
how like how is it that during this time it's affected you that way?
Yeah, it's super interesting. And so, I mean, I kind of compare it to if I'm out and about in public and I feel like I'm getting a word for somebody or starting to sense an aura on somebody. I always feel it in my hands. My hands start to heat up.
Really?
Yeah, so I know that there's someone in that room with me right then that either needs like a chakra clearing or a word or something. And so I try to just tap into that energy. So it's been like that at night, probably for the last week, where all of a sudden it just hits me. I'm resting, I'm almost ready to sleep, and then it feels like, an elephant just sat on my chest. I can't get my breath. My entire body is like vibrating,
Wow.
and my mind is going 1,000 miles a minute, and I know it's not me. I know something's going on. And so
Huh.
usually what I have been doing is I just come outside and I ground, just connect to the earth and just sit there for a while and feel the breeze and listen to the wind in the trees and just connect with the universe, knowing that, okay, I'm supposed to be used for something at some point. It's just hitting me at 1 a.m. So obviously I'm not, marching off to give some word to somebody at 1 a.m, but
Sure.
it's important to kind of recharge myself, because I do sense that something big is shifting, is changing, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I don't know what it's going to be, but I want to be an instrument in that. And so it's almost like fine tuning me right now is how
Nice.
I'm taking it, of like, hey, I'm not sleeping, but I think I'm fine tuning for something. So
Well, that's good. You're taking a potentially difficult experience and turning it into something positive. That's kind of a lesson that comes up here over and over again.
yeah, well, and I think we need to do that, because I mean, if I were to sit and say, oh my gosh, I haven't slept in a week, I'm grumpy, my back hurts, my neck hurts, boo-hoo, poor me.
Right,
Um, all of that focus is so inward, when, our focus was never supposed to be so self-centered. It's meant to be outward. We're
right.
meant to be giving. And as we give, I mean, it also gives to us.
Oh yeah.
So, you need to take that as like, okay, obviously I'm not getting a lot of sleep. So I'm not at 100%. My cup's not full. I can't just run out yet and start giving to everybody, because I'll drain my battery.
Right.
But something's happening, something big is happening that's charging my battery. And I have to just kind of keep quiet, keep to myself until till the go button is pushed.
Got it.
And, I think I'll know once I start sleeping really well and my cup gets full, what that's going to be. But something's shifting, and I think it's happening for a lot of people.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like that's happening for me in a particular way as well. In a very good way. I'm looking forward to bringing this new thing up to life. Do you think there's a way that people can, I don't know if harness is a good word, but access these energies in a more concentrated way? Or is there a
Um,
way that people can protect themselves from these energies and keep from being affected?
Absolutely. I think that's kind of twofold. I think for opening yourself up, probably the easiest and quickest way is using binaural beats. And you can just go onto YouTube and you can put, like, it would be pineal gland activation. So activating that pineal gland opens up your third eye, so you are more aware of colors and auras and frequencies and everything around us. That being said, be very careful. If you tap that in and you find one, if you're not used to it, I wouldn't go for more than like 1 to 2 minutes to start with. It can actually be very painful, and it can be very, well, eye-opening, so to speak, where it's like all of a sudden stuff's happening and it's kind of freaky. It could be for a lot of people. So I would, ease yourself into that, definitely. But that's a pretty simple and easy way, a minute or two a day, just to kind of activate that gland and open it back up. Because I think that with the environment and the air and the water and the food and vaccines and all of that, it's really
Right.
trying to damage that part of us, that we are beings that are way more dimensions than three. So that's a super easy way to do that. As far as protection goes, there's diodes that you can find, or copper, things like that, that you can place on your phone, that you can place in your house, that kind of repel a lot of those electromagnetic radiation frequencies. Those are super good as well.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think tomorrow it's coming. I'm getting a thing for my swimming pool that is got a copper anode in it, and it's solar
Mm,
powered, and it's supposed to keep the algae down. And
excellent.
I know it kind of follows along with the electroculture idea of
Hmm.
helping the good things and keeping the bad things at bay. And
Absolutely.
seems like all of this kind of falls in line. Well, Erin, as always, we have a great conversation when we sit down.
Yep.
Is there, you were talking about sometimes you get called to give a word. Is there a word you'd like to leave our audience with here?
Don't be afraid of change. I think that we get comfortable. And as you get comfortable, it seems to me kind of like a pond that's going to get filled with algae, never moving. And, we get scared of the rapids or the ripples or all of those little things that could happen, and embrace it. Try to embrace that change. Life's full of change. And I think that if we get comfortable being stagnant, we're only going to get hurt. So try to embrace it, open yourself up to embracing that change. Bad things are going to happen, but if you kind of like let them flow back through the ripples, good will come of it. But you just have to be willing and open.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's some sound advice. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure having a chat with you. Look forward to the next one. And to all of our listeners, this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumman, and I want to thank all of the listeners for making the show possible. And we will see you next time. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.